Hello everyone, Perse7 here, back with more Bloons TD 6, and this time we're going to be seeing if super buffed wizards can beat Lich. Or not super buff wizards, you can't buff wizards. But anyways, can wizards beat Lich this time? Unfortunately, the last time we did this, was snipers. Snipers did end up beating Lich. It was actually kind of surprising, probably due to the most recent buff that bottom path sniper got, getting, plus few mob damage, which allowed it to end up beating Lich. So this time we're seeing if wizards can do so. I assume that wizards can do so, seeing as, top path, of course, is what we're going to be spamming. It's the most expensive, number one. Number two, it also, I feel like, does the most damage for the cost. Phoenix was probably a second closed option for spamming, but Phoenix is based on the ability, and, it'd probably be more consistent and do a lot more damage if I spammed Arcane Spikes instead of summoning Phoenixes. Unfortunately, bottom path wizard is, out of the question. It's just not really good enough and not really meant for a mob damage tower. It's definitely more so for cleanup than it is for, single target damage. Now, unfortunately, Ben was banned for this week of Lich, but that doesn't really matter too much since, I can bring Oben, and Oben does buff magic monkeys, even though the only buff he gives is range and pierce. And I do believe that he also gives a 5% cooldown reduction, but that's not really too important, as Wizard Lord Phoenix is going to be the only tower that actually benefits from that. But yeah, that's mainly about it. There really isn't really any other hero that synergizes as well with magic monkeys, or other than Oben. Maybe Pat, but buffs don't really work for Lich, so Pat is also out of the question. So for tier 1, I couldn't afford Archmage, so I just ended up going for 3 Arcane Spikes, and 3 Arcane Spikes actually did incredibly well. I was actually a bit surprised at just how fast, 3 Arcanes actually just end up draining Lich. I think this is probably one of the fastest Lich kills I've actually done so far, seeing as just it's kind of impressive. If the Lich Soul didn't really exist right now, this definitely would be so much faster. Of course, this won't really work for Elite, I'm pretty sure, because Elite, I think, has 52,000 health, or something along that lines. It's probably either 28,000 health or 52,000, something like that, so where, so much health that, it's not really worth doing. Unfortunately, Lich, due to how fast Lich is, it does get out of range of the Arcane Spikes pretty quickly, but it's whatever. Just due to just how fast they can take down the Lich, it doesn't really matter if it just waits a few more rounds in order for Lich to be popped. It was an overall pretty impressive, tier 1. It's definitely up there with being the fastest. I think snipers are still faster, simply just because snipers have the advantage of, full map range. Unfortunately wizards don't. But I think if, wizards also had full map range, like Arcane Spikes, I think you'd probably be very close, and if snipers could end up, or wizards could end up beating out snipers in speed. So for tier 2 is pretty much the same thing, except we can actually afford Archmage this time. So I really don't think Archmage would actually provide too much, but this actually was also fairly speedy. So it wasn't really as fast as tier 1, obviously, just because of the much more HP that Lich has, but it was still actually fairly fast, seeing as Archmage was just kind of carrying everything. Although I can understand why the community just says, Archmage isn't really OP, as it really just kind of is, I guess, a mediocre tower, unfortunately. Wizard Lord Phoenix and Prince of Darkness got so many buffs that I just kind of left Archmage in the dust, although I don't think NK is going to buff Archmage anyway, as I do feel like it's in a okay spot right now. It's not really, I guess, OP, but it can work, and I think that's something that the community is just going to have to accept for this. Now I ended up selling to get a Necromancer, as the purples on 62 was a bit worrying. I completely forgot around. Thankfully, Oben's trees was more than enough to swallow up the majority of purples anyways. Even though I did end up healing Lich in the process, it doesn't really matter, seeing as, wizards are just shredding Lich right now. And yet again, I ran into the issue of Lich being so fast that he kept going out of range of my wizards, but it's just kind of whatever. Again, waiting a few more rounds doesn't really matter, seeing as I had all the time in the world to actually beat Lich. So again, now it's just kind of spam even more arcanes just to get a head start for tier 3. Tier 3 is when we're going to be getting every single wizard tier 5, including WLP, which WLP, no spoilers, but WLP was a bit surprising during this run. Now here comes tier 3, which is barely affording WLP in time. And if you saw there for a second, WLP was actually doing some insane damage. It actually did a lot of damage against, tier 3. Even though, of course, it wasn't incredibly fast or anything, it was just actually kind of impressive. Unfortunately, WLP absolutely kills the bitrate, but nothing I can really do about that. But it's probably whatever, it's going to be like that for the higher tiers anyways. But WLP was actually kind of a champ during tier 3. Of course, I still had to spam Arcane Spikes, but WLP was surprisingly a lot better than I thought. I don't really ever use this tower simply just because I don't really want to manage my abilities, as well as say $54,000 for this tower, even though I know it's pretty good. Has been used like in a lot of challenges, like 2TC 2 million pops. I've seen someone do 2 million pops on Infernal with WLP, which is actually impressive and amazing, but still not a tower I really generally like using. But we are still having to spam quite a few Arcane Spike, because I was a bit worried that we might not have enough in the tank in order to actually beat Lych. Lych at this point I believe is more than halfway through the track and still has not reached his 3rd skull. So that was a bit worrying on my part, as again I wasn't really sure if we were going to have enough in order to actually beat Lych. But then I remembered that, yeah, Lych is out of range out of most of my towers, so of course, the damage was going to slow down quite a bit. WLP is the only tower right now that actually has global map range. And even then, it's only like global map range for like the little Phoenix ice spawns. The main super lava Phoenix from WLP is the main damage of the tower. And again, Prince of Darkness is doing next to absolutely nothing. Unfortunately, Prince of Darkness is definitely a cleanup tower, like I said before. Not only meant for a single target, but even still, Prince of Darkness will be useful for the chain DTs that Lych will eventually be spawning for the next tier. So Prince of Darkness isn't 100% useless, although it's definitely not ideal for Lych. So for tier 4 is basically the same thing. I've placed on a lot of base wizards just to help me get my Arcane Spike sound faster. Now it's just the time where we're just spamming the most expensive tower there is for wizards, which of course being Arcane Spike. I was kind of curious to see, if it was worth spamming Phoenixes, because, well, Prince of Darkness does say it enhances all of the Necromancers, although I wasn't really sure how that was actually going to help, number 1. Number 2, spawning zombies I figured was probably going to be an issue as well, since, there's not really a lot of balloons, and of course, I'm not really sure how good, Necromancer spam would be good at, like, popping, fortified ZOMGs, like, on round 100 plus, or even, like, bads on round 100 plus. I figured it probably wasn't good enough in order to, of course, actually pop those. So Necromancer spam, of course, was off the table. So now it's just kind of hopefully take down Lych fast enough. Again, this is a bit worrying, even though I am spamming all these Arcane Spikes. I'm not even actually making enough money to actually keep up with all the Arcane Spikes I actually need to upgrade and place down. Lych was not going down, as fast as I had wanted him to. And, even then I am kind of reaching the limit of the amount of Arcane Spikes that I actually spam. I don't even end up bothering upgrading these guys to camo, or I just straight up go for Arcane Spike. I figured I probably wouldn't even need camo or the extra pierce or projectile speed, because at this point, that doesn't really help much for single target damage. Pierce doesn't really matter if you're only attacking one target. Projectile speed also doesn't really matter. We end up dying to chain DTs, which is a bit surprising seeing as I have Prince of Darkness. I was a little disappointed with that. Now, believe it or not, I actually ended up dying multiple times to chain DTs, so I figured it's like, screw it, I'm just gonna get super glue. I think I did allow super glue. Actually, no, I only allowed super glue for the super buff towers, but I figured, I could definitely beat this if it wasn't for the chain DTs. Of course, I could, untech bot Phoenix and use Phoenix whenever chain DTs spawn, but then I figured, that would be too much of a hassle to do. I don't really feel like I'm doing that, and plus, I just need straight up damage is definitely what I need. Even though untech botting Phoenix would probably make the bit rate a bit better, but again, it was more just concerned about how much damage I'm going to do at this point. Alright, so for tier 5, the final tier, I filled the map with as many Arcane Spikes as I spam. I could have gotten, like Snowstorm and Absolute Zero platforms in order to get even more, but I figured it probably wasn't worth it at this point. I did have a few unupgraded wizards at the bottom, as you can see, right next to Energizer. I figured, it probably wasn't even worth, getting those Arcane Spike, because, this is so late in the track and they won't really be attacking Lych all that often that I didn't really think they were going to do too much damage. So looking at the damage that, all the wizards are doing, it doesn't seem like, wizards are going to be able to take down tier 5 Lych. Even with all these Arcane Spikes, The damage is very slow. Lich is like probably what I'd say a third into the track and still has not even reached one skull yet. It's just about to reach one skull now, and by the time, it would definitely be too late. So I guess I did try to solve this, but by just spamming as and upgrading many wizards as I can, but at this point it wasn't really gonna do anything. Even though I was also worried about the Lich soul, that was taking a while to kill. And I didn't really go for too many marketplaces since this is normal, and normal Lich doesn't really take down too much health. So yeah. Unfortunately, wizards cannot beat Lich. It's very sad. Although I guess it's not really to be too surprising. Wizards were never really known for their single target damage, unlike what other towers like. Snipers have phenomenal single target damage. That's kind of what Elite Defender, and Bomb Path Sniper is made for, is single target damage. The best single target damage you probably have, in my opinion, is probably WLP. The main, disregarding the ability entirely, I think the main fireball attack from WLP does 27 damage, which is actually pretty surprising. I'm about to go look at the wiki, I'll screenshot that and put it here to see if that's actually true. But I think that, WLP is probably the best single target damage we have here, even probably better than Archmage if I had to guess. And Phoenix is also the has global range, which is a semi-global range. It's really only the main it's really only the Phoenix that does. The main tower itself, of course, doesn't have global range, but even still, I guess Wizard Lord Phoenix is probably the best single target damage we have, even better than Archmage. But it's kind of whatever. I was a bit disappointed that Wizards couldn't actually beat Lich, but it's not really too surprising when you think about it, because Wizards were never really meant for a single target damage. Although who knows, maybe a super buffed Archmage could end up beating Bloonarius. That'd be kind of fun to see if it can.